I'm quite happy to be here tonight. It's the first time I've come to this association. So I think as our brother Chua said just now, since you're not familiar with me, I'll introduce myself a bit. I was originally from Kuala Lumpur. I grew up in Kuala Lumpur. And then I worked in JKR for 12 years. And after working in JKR for 12 years, I came across the Dhamma. Actually, I was searching for the meaning of life about 20 years ago. So I started to read books of the various religions, the Bible, the Quran, Sikhism, Taoism, Hinduism, and most of the other religions, until finally I came to Buddhism. Then after I came to Buddhism, I found that it was quite different from other religions, and I got more interested and investigated it more deeply. And I found that the more I studied the Buddha's teachings, the more happy I was. So I decided to renounce. Initially, like most people, you think you want to renounce, and then you get scared. Then sometimes you want, sometimes you don't want. So I had this ding-dong going on for 6 years. So after 6 years of investigating the Dhamma, my father passed away and the conditions were right. So I left and became a monk. When I first came into Buddhism, I came to Mahayana Buddhism. I did study some Theravada Buddhism, but my inclination at first was towards Mahayana Buddhism. And for 6 years as a layman, I practiced Mahayana and some Tibetan Buddhism and investigated some Theravada Buddhism, but mainly Mahayana Buddhism. And then when I decided to become a monk, I went to America, to the Mahayana temple there, and became a novice monk there for 3 years. Then after 3 years, I came back for various reasons. I was a bit disappointed, so I came back. And after that, I switched over to Theravada Buddhism. I went to Thailand. But before that, I came back to Penang. I ordained as a Mahayana Bhikkhu. I was only a Mahayana Bhikkhu for a few months. After that, I went to Thailand in 1986, in March. Then I took the higher precepts. So now I've been a Theravada monk for 10 years. When I was in Mahayana Buddhism, I was more investigating Mahayana Buddhism. I didn't have a chance to compare with Theravada Buddhism. But later when I came into Theravada Buddhism, then I could compare the two. Then I started to realize there were some discrepancies. So that's basically, I think that's all I have to say about my background. I've been staying in Penang Hill, up on the hill. And now after 6.5 years staying up on the hill, I decided to do a bit of travel. Later this month I'll go to Australia and spend my Vasa in Perth, where they have I hear a very beautiful 97-acre monastery under Ajahn Brahmavamso. So by the end of the year, I'll come back to Malaysia. Now, I'd like to talk a bit about the Dhamma now. The first thing I'd like to talk about is concerning Kamma, because in the Buddha's teachings, the Aryan Eightfold Path begins with right view. And right view is the most important thing in the practice of the Buddha's teachings. And the basic right view concerns Kamma. because I find everywhere I go in Malaysia, a lot of people call themselves Buddhists, but they don't have a very good understanding of karma. So much so that many people, they come to the Buddhist society or to the temple and they pray to a statue of the Buddha. And many people don't realize that for about 500 years after the Buddha's passing away, there was no Buddha images. Nobody made Buddha images because they understood the Dhamma and they understood that there's no point to pray to a Buddha image. The Buddha never asked us to pray to him. Buddha cannot really bless us. The Buddha cannot really bring us out of samsara, cannot end our suffering. He can only show the way. As in the Dhammapada he said, the Buddhas show the way and we ourselves have to walk the way. So formally, for 500 years after the Buddha's passing, there was no Buddha images. It's only nowadays there's a lot of Buddha images and Bodhisattva images, etc. So, sometimes we see some people come to the temple, they kneel before the Buddha image and talk to the Buddha image as though the Buddha image was alive. Because it's understandable, when we come, we are new into the Dhamma, there's a lot of things we don't understand. We pray to the Buddhas and we like to do a lot of chanting, etc. Then later we find that the real practice is like in keeping our precepts, doing some dana, investigating the suttas, and sitting in meditation, etc. Now coming back to this karma, sometimes karma is karma and vipaka. In Pali we always talk about karma and vipaka. Sometimes this has been translated as cause and effect. That is a very bad translation, because cause and effect can mean many other things which are unconnected with the Buddha's teachings. Even in science, in physics, there is Newton's second law, which concerns also cause and effect. For every action, there's a reaction, something like that. So, karma actually is more than just cause and effect. Karma, in the sutta, the Buddha said, intention is karma. That means any intentional deed is karma. So, vipaka is the result or the fruit. So, karma vipaka concerns any intentional deed that is done by a living being. If there is no intention, then there is no karma. For example, if you were driving a car on the road and a little boy ran across the road, and then your car hit the boy and killed the boy. Now in that case, because you did not have an intention to kill that boy, there is no karma involved. But there is cause and effect, because after you kill the boy, maybe the boy's father might stop your car, drag you out of the car and beat you up. So that is worldly cause and effect, but it does not concern the Buddha's teachings on karma vipaka. So that is the first thing we got to understand. Karma only concerns intentional action through the body, speech and mind. Now basically the law of karma says that if we, other living beings, we will also reap the fruit which benefits us correspondingly. And if we harm other living beings, we will also suffer by being harmed correspondingly. That means if you kill a living being, you make other living beings' lives short, then the natural result of it is that you will have short life. And if you do not kill, do not make other living beings' life short, you allow them to live out the full span of their life, then the natural result of it is that you will also get the benefit of long life. Now this Kamma is, just now I said, the corresponding result. You read the corresponding result, which means, for example, if a person is very rich and then he likes to go hunting, he doesn't really need to hunt for a livelihood, just for sport, just for fun. He goes and shoots a lot of animals and kills them. Then one day maybe suddenly he gets cancer or something, and then he finds that his life is going to be very short. Now this person, if he doesn't understand Kamma, he might think, oh, I'm going to do a lot of dana, I'm going to offer a lot of money to the temples, to the monks, and maybe that will give me long life. But it will not, because the action of his was to shorten other living beings' life. And that doesn't correspond with giving dana, giving material benefits. So we have to be quite clear. If we want long life, we have to help other beings to have long life. If we want to be rich, then we can do dana, do charity, and perhaps that will make us rich in future. The other thing I like to say is, Kamma Vipaka concerns not only past karma and the present result. It has a lot to do with present life karma. In other words, if a person wants to be rich, then he finds that perhaps there's a lot of obstruction to becoming a rich man. But if he makes a lot of effort, that effort that he makes, if he's very, very determined, that effort may overcome a lot of that bad karma. For example, a very good example you all might know is the case of Angulimala, the person who killed hundreds of people. He was a kind of bandit, but he was a lone ranger bandit. He lived in the forest, and then anybody came, he would kill them. So he killed hundreds of people. Now the result of killing so many people would have naturally brought him to hell to suffer for a long time. But because the Buddha converted him, helped him to become a monk, then he practiced very hard. But as a monk, he had to suffer some of that bad karma, because in the sutta we find that sometimes when he went out for alms round, people would throw a rock on him and hit him, and he would bleed on the head. Or people would hit him with stick or something. So he came and he told the Buddha what happened to him, and he was in tears. Then the Buddha asked him to bear it, told him to bear it, because the Buddha said, if you don't bear this result of your evil karma now, if you don't strive very hard, you might go to the woeful plains and suffer much, much more. So the Buddha made him realize that he had to overcome this bad karma, this very life itself, by cultivating very hard, so that he could overcome this bad karma. Then he heeded the Buddha's advice. He cultivated very hard until he became an arahant. And when he became an arahant, even when a person becomes an arya, even a sotapanna, he already would not be reborn into the woeful plains. So this Angulimala is a very good example. Sometimes people say, I think some of you are familiar, the traditional interpretation of Paticca Samuppada. They say we are in samsara because we create a lot of karma. If we stop creating karma, we'll get out of samsara. But that's not what we understand from the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha's teachings is karma can be stopped if we make the effort. Not all karma ripens. All karma has the potential to ripen. But if you strive and then you let go of the will to live, become an arahant, you stop a lot of even very heavy karma from ripening. That is possible. Now, just now, I was saying that people sometimes like to pray to the Buddha and to the Bodhisattvas and ask for this and that. There is a sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya where the Buddha said very clearly, the Buddha said, there are several things that living beings want, or people want. For example, people want to be happy, people want to have long life, people want to be born beautiful, to be born into a good family, a rich family, and then people want to be reborn after death into a very good place of rebirth. All these things, the Buddha said, are desirable, but very hard to obtain. And then the Buddha said very clearly, these things that we want and difficult to get, they are not to be got by prayers and vows. The Buddha said prayers and vows will not get us these things that we want. The Buddha said if prayers and vows can get us these things that we want, then why is there still so much suffering in the world? You can see in the world almost everybody prays for this and for that, always going to the temple. But the Buddha said that's not the way to get what we want. Otherwise, there will be less dukkha in the world. Dukkha in the world never decreases. It's always about the same. In spite of so many Buddhas having come, in spite of so many Bodhisattvas having come, you find there's still a lot of animals, there's still a lot of ghosts, there's still a lot of beings in hell. So, here is a very clear advice from the Buddha that prayers and vows do not get us what we want. Then the Buddha said, if you want something, you must walk the path that leads you to get what you want. For example, like here, we are in Telok Intan. If you want to go to Singapore, there's no point if you walk. Singapore is south of Telok Intan. There's no point if you walk towards the north and make a vow that you'll reach Singapore, because you'll never reach Singapore. So if you want to reach Singapore, you must walk in the direction of the south. Then you walk in the southern direction without praying, without making a vow. One day you will naturally arrive in Singapore because you are walking the right direction. So similarly, the Buddha said, if we want to have long life, we should not kill, should not take other living beings' life. If we want to be born beautiful, we must not always throw tempers, get angry so much, because every time we get angry, we become very fierce, and then our face contorts, becomes very fierce. And naturally, you make it a habit, the face always contorting and becoming so fierce and ugly, and next time you'll be born ugly. So if you want to be born beautiful, the Buddha's advice is to be very chinchai. Then the Buddha said, if we want to be born intelligent, smart, we should inquire. If there's something we don't know, don't keep quiet. We should make inquiry, investigation to understand what we don't know. And then also it helps if we don't drink liquor, because if we drink liquor, it damages our brain cells. And the third way of being intelligent is to meditate, because if we meditate, we cultivate our mind. Our mind is like a computer, If we don't meditate, if we sleep too much, many sections of our brain shut down, like the various circuits shutting down, So when you meditate after a long time, you find like currents going in your brain, all the circuits starting to energize. So it's quite interesting. So this is concerning karma. For example, if we want to be born or reborn into a good family, well-to-do family where people sort of look up to us, then we should be humble. We should not look down on other people. For example, we should respect our elders, our parents, and our aunties and uncles, and our grandparents, and our teachers, and our monks, etc. If we pay due respect to those worthy of respect, next time we might be reborn. There's a very good chance that we'll be reborn into a family where people will look up to us. So this is all concerning Kamma. Now, if a person does not do the action to sort of bring you to what you want, it's just like a worker, he does not do his work, and then he pleads for the boss to give him the salary. The boss definitely will not give him the salary because he has not done his work. But if he were to do 1 month's, the complete month's work, without begging the boss for the pay, at the end of the month the boss will naturally give him the pay. So that's just like the working of karma. If we do the necessary action, we will get the corresponding fruit without having to pray, without having to ask for it. The other thing I like to say is that the Buddha said that the vipaka, the result of a deed of karma, is not the same for two persons, Two persons doing the same karma will probably have different results. Why? Because these two persons are different. The Buddha said if a person has a lot of good karma behind him, he has a store, a treasury of good karma. He's got like a bank account. Karma is like our bank account. He's got a lot of good karma. Then we're like a rich man. Then if we do an evil deed, the Buddha said, if we do a small evil deed, we might feel remorse, we might feel unhappy for 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. But after that, the Buddha said we don't have to pay anymore for that evil deed. It's sort of wiped out. But another person who's got a bank account in the debit, in the red, that means he's got a lot of evil karma stored up. Then if he does the same small evil deed, the Buddha said that small evil deed might pull him down to hell. Why is it like that? The Buddha gave 2 types of simile. The Buddha said, in the olden days, during the Buddha's time, they did not have this fine salt. They have a rock salt, lump of salt. So the Buddha said, if you take a lump of salt, you put it into a cup of water, then you stir it, then you drink the cup of water. It's very salty. But if you take the same lump of salt, you put it into a river, which has a lot of water, then you stir the river water and you drink it, you don't feel the salty taste. Then the Buddha said, the water represents our good karma, the salt represents our evil karma. So if we have a lot of this good karma, it helps to dilute the effect of the evil karma. That's a very good simile. Another simile the Buddha gave was suppose you are in the house, at the back of the house, cooking or doing some work. And then a beggar comes to your house. He enters your door, hoping to beg for some money. But you're not in the front, you're at the back, and you don't realize he came to the house. So he came to the house, he saw, perhaps you put $10 on your table. So this beggar, he saw the $10, and then he pocketed the $10 and walked out. Now, then you come out, and then you see this beggar going away, and you find your $10 missing. What most people would do is to shout, thief or something, and then catch him or clobber him, and then report to the police, and then he will end up in jail. But suppose you get another, say like a VIP, a Tan Sri or a Dato or something, coming to visit the constituency, and then perhaps with a few other VIPs. Then he came to your house. In a similar way, you were at the back, and then he saw the $10, he pocketed the $10 and walked out. Then when you came out, you saw your $10 missing and these people walking away. Most people would just keep quiet. You think to yourself, yeah, I report to the police, and maybe I might get caught. Not that fellow. I might get into trouble, not him. So, you see, two persons doing the same act, the result is different. So from here, we can understand why it's very important to have a good stock of merit. The more merit we do, this sort of helps us much more. The other thing we want to know is that we should understand our human plane, our human life is very, very important, Because if we look into the realms of existence, we find above us are the heavens, and then below us are the woeful planes. There are three woeful planes below us, the hells, the animals, and the ghosts. Now, if we compare our human life with the other beings, you will find that human beings, we do a lot of karma, Every day we are creating karma. So, in other words, the human level is the deciding ground, The next few lives will depend on what we are doing now, because the karma that we do now is going to have an effect over several lifetimes. Whereas other planes, they are reaping the result of their past karma. The devas, the heavenly beings, are reaping the result of their good karma. And then the woeful planes, the living beings there, are reaping the result of their evil karma in the past. And they are not creating much karma. They hardly create karma compared to us. Whereas we are, every day we are thinking and doing intentional deeds. So you should remember that this is a very important place of existence, the human plane.